Hello folks, and welcome back to the Universal Mind channel. In this episode we're going to explore what we believe the universal mind to be. You're free to accept or reject any or part of it. That's each of our rights as individuals. We each are on a path, and it's interesting, but we note that the First Amendment to the United States Constitution respects that journey in freedom of speech and freedom of religion. Everyone has the right to pursue their belief without interference, without prejudice, and if their paths go beyond religion, those beliefs are to be respected as well. And in that spirit, we will proceed. Consciousness, what we see, the universal mind to be, it's infinite and eternal as the universe. Our relationship with the universal mind is complex. And I would even say it's counterintuitive. The further you reach for it, the harder you want it. Oneness with, whether you call it God or universal consciousness or the universal mind, whatever you call it to be. The more effort you put into pursuing it, the further you push it away. Why? The universal mind is a consciousness that is not totally self-aware. It's aware of a wholeness, because it is the wholeness. So logically, if you have a mind that is self-aware, then it's already divided itself from itself. A wholeness can only perceive the wholeness, which means it really perceives nothing. Because if you blank your mind, if you want to perceive the wholeness of the universal consciousness, you have to blank your mind. The more you concentrate, the more you are separating your own consciousness from what it is. So the only way we really have an opportunity to approach it is to be absent-minded, daydreaming, being in the shower, distracting your mind. That is the best way to come to oneness with the universal mind. If you pursue it, if you concentrate on, if you think with your conscious mind to become one with the universal mind, you won't touch it. You push it away. Why? Because in the pursuit of oneness, you are reinforcing your awareness that you're separate. And that's an illusion. You're not separate, except with your five senses. Just as physicists will tell you that the classical mechanical world is the world we live in, the five senses. A good example of the five senses is when a cheetah pursues an animal, and the relative speed between the two of them gets to a point where the animal that the cheetah's pursuing, the cheetah can sense that speed and distance is too great for it to catch, it stops. That is an awareness of classical mechanics. It understands instinctively at what point it can no longer successfully pursue its meal. And it goes on to pursue another animal. We instinctively are aware of those things. It's almost like hand-eye coordination. It's an instinct. But when you're dealing with the quantum world, quantum mechanics, we have no frame of reference other than mathematics, theoretical mathematics, upon which to put ourselves in a situation where we can relatively perceive what goes on in the quantum world. Now, we can have particle accelerators like at CERN, where we have collisions of fundamental particles and see what happens. That's observation. But beyond that, it's theoretical math. That's the only way we've been able to come to terms with the possibilities with which fundamental particles behave and their interactions with the larger universe. The same goes for the universal mind. We're trapped in five senses. We cannot really step into the universal mind without getting rid of the five senses, and everything in our consciousness tries to fight that, because evolution has taught us and created within us the need to depend upon five senses for self-preservation. So evolution kind of has put in inhibitors within our minds to stop us from blanking out and moving away from the physical world sense-wise, sensory-wise, because it's not safe. So we have to find ways to trick evolution, trick our own consciousness, so that we can have an opportunity to experience the universal mind in some limited way. Instead of praying or meditating in an effort to join the universal mind, or trying to, as one may mistakenly say, becoming one with God, what we may need to do is free our consciousness of thought altogether and allow our awareness to our consciousness to become aware of the reality we are one with the universal mind. We are. That's going to take some time for each of us to come to grips with, that we are already one with the universal mind. We're physical manifestations of the consciousness that is the universal mind. The universal mind is not physical as we know it to be. It exists within the frame of reference of the universe. So within the terms of the universe, it is a physical creation. But its impact upon the universe is quantum mechanical and of consciousness. And that consciousness is a field energy created, maintained by the photons that have existed throughout the time of the universe and its existence 14 billion years ago. The field of energy that those photons have created over time, it's a sea of consciousness. And we are immersed in it, but we can't feel it, taste it, sense it, and therefore we don't believe in it. So I can understand if this video is very hard for people to digest. But just remember, as a beginning, the more you try to become one with God, the more you try, or the universal consciousness, the further away you push it. If you want to grow into an awareness of your oneness with God, you call it enlightenment, you call it self-realization. Self-realization, what is it? If you realize yourself, you're realizing that you're separate. So it shouldn't be self-realization. It should be universal realization. Realize your oneness. Gradually, as you blank your mind, and if you want to call it meditation, you can call it meditation. But as you blank your mind, do it in the context that you are seeking to move beyond the physical separation that exists and mental, the erroneous mental frame of reference that you're separate. The self-hypnosis that we believe we're separate. And then we're not. Except to the extent our physical senses prevent us from seeing ourselves as part of a whole. The physical beings that we are, we're separate. We're individuals. And we live with that. We are bound to that. We explore, our lives are meant to explore, enhance, and enlighten our minds with our growing individuality. And yet the more we become individuals, the less we are in touch with the universal mind as a whole, as part of a whole. That's a contradiction, and it's inherent in our individual physical beings. We look around every day and we see ourselves separate from everything that exists. How can we perceive ourselves to be part of a whole? We can't see it. The only way to do it is to go within. You can't go to religion. My opinion, folks. You can't go to religion to experience oneness with the universal force, God, whatever. What religion teaches is that you're separate. You need the church. You need priests. You need pastors. You need other things separate from you to get to God. That's inherently contradictory to the truth that you're one with everything that exists. And you're consciously one with the universal mind. Separation is an illusion that we teach ourselves every day exists. And the only time that we unteach it is when we meditate, we go within. Religion seeks relevance by convincing you that you need an intercessor to intervene between you and God. That's not true. You don't need an intercessor. It's within you. Religion seeks to convince you that there is a heaven and a hell after this world. That's not true. The Hubble and the Webb telescopes have looked back to the dawn of time. There's no heaven and there's no hell in this physical universe. And as far as the scriptures are concerned, there is no other realm except there's heaven, hell, and the physical universe. There is nothing else. Now, if God made everything and everything is within the physical universe, then we better have been able to find heaven located somewhere in the universe and somewhere a hell. And they don't exist. They haven't been found. And the reality for religion is that the more and more people become more and more educated into realizing that fact, the less and less relevance religion will have, and the less and less money they'll have, and the less and less political power they'll have upon the masses. And they know it, I think. And that's why in the future I foresee, unfortunately, greater religious-based conflicts. Because the males in charge of the world's religions will not easily go into the sunset and leave their money machine behind without a fight of some kind. But in between all that, and despite all that, individuals like you can pursue your journey of awareness, of growing awareness of the reality of your oneness with the universal spirit from within. You don't have to talk about it. It's within you. Nobody can tell what you're doing. They can't read your minds, not yet anyway. Maybe in the future. But they can't do it yet. So they can't tell that you are communing with the universal mind on your own and have turned your back on the myth and the fantasy that has been called religion, Western religion, in the past 2,000, 3,000 years. The way we're taught God is of a parent judging children. And if you don't believe in a certain religion's God, then you're not one of the children. You can't be saved. You go to hell. The universal mind, folks, doesn't take sides. It's there for all, regardless of what you believe, regardless of what you don't believe. Atheists are as part of the whole as everyone else. They're part of existence. And that means they're part of the universal mind. They're part of the whole. Everything that exists is part of the whole. That same feeling of, that same premise that God is a parent, it's not just of a judgmental being. And God's not the universal mind is not judgmental. And it's funny because I will lapse into that frame of reference of God myself, because I was indoctrinated when I was a youth into a religion. But let's go beyond that. Parents are judgmental. The universal mind is not judgmental. The universal mind is not consciously aware of itself, except through us as individuals. We create the identity. Whatever identity the universal mind has, it's from us. Universal mind doesn't take sides in wars or competitions. Is that good or bad? I mean, does that mean bad guys can win? Bad guys do win sometimes. Evil does triumph, unfortunately, sometimes, when goodness, expressed through individuals, allows it to happen. There are people who, for whatever reason, do evil things, make evil choices, are corrupt. Some people have no ethics. Some people are violent. Some people are narcissistic. Some people do put themselves before others. Look at Putin. Look at Kim Jong-un. Look at the Ayatollah in Iran. Violence, hate. And here in America, racists, fascists, autocrats. You know who they are. Why are they the way they are? DNA, evolution, genetics, upbringing, choices. God, the universal mind really doesn't care. It sees all children, everything that exists as it. And it cannot kill itself. The universal mind, suicide is not a possible thing. It's contrary to its frame of reference. It just doesn't see goodness and badness. It sees only itself. Therefore, it has no internal conflict, and therefore no reason to commit suicide. Okay? So put that aside. It doesn't exist. What's important is that individuals are the only means by which the universal mind expresses itself in physical reality, and we live in physical reality. We ourselves determine the course of events in this world. We ourselves choose to either follow evil or fight it. We are the expressions of the universal mind in this world. And that is why this channel supports Ukraine, because we understand that God, the universal mind, or God, acts through us, just as evil acts through humans. Evil being violence, hate, narcissism, fascism, choices that hurt others, greed, and lust for power. We're not talking about lust in the sexual sense. It's lust for power and fame. Those are an evil if they hurt others. The universal mind doesn't take sides. And it is it's, I don't want to say ignorant, it's unenlightened for anyone to say, oh, God support, thank God I won that. Thank God our team, God supports our team, thank God. Whatever. Any reference to God in thanking God for your victory or success is unenlightened. Let's just put it that way. The only part of the universe that had anything to do with your victory is you. And whatever inspiration you were able to acquire from within yourself. And there is inspiration, but if you're inspired, you've opened yourself to it, congrats to you. That's something you did. The universal mind's only aware of unity. And look at it this way. If you're going to look at the universal mind as some parental force, parents don't take sides among their children. Not good parents, not loving parents. And God has always been portrayed as a loving parent. So by definition, by religion's own definition, religion cannot use God as nations cannot use God or religion to bless them in battle, because God doesn't take sides among its own children. Religion is inherently flawed. Each religion creates a false relationship with a false power they call God, a word used to maximize the view of how powerless the masses are in relation to this false entity, God. The universal mind is not at odds with itself. You're part of it. It is you. You are it. It will not take sides against you. It is there to teach you through your own past lives and the experiences you've had within them. And whatever inspiration you're enlightenment and your awareness of your wholeness provides you. Religious elites have sought power over the masses for thousands of years. The exact opposite of military force. How is that? Military force uses physical force to coerce obedience. Religious elites use human nature, fear of death, and fear and the unknown of what happens afterwards. And they've created a process by which people are indoctrinated to pursue religion to help them intervene against death because they fear it and what may happen afterwards. So where is the proof of a hell? Where is the proof of a heaven? The only relevance that religion has is to prevent you from going to hell, right? Well, what if hell doesn't exist? What's the relevance of religion then? What can it do for you? Can it take you to heaven? Let's say there is no hell. Can it take you to heaven? What if there's no heaven? What can religion really do for you? But it takes your money, and it tells you how to live. And it tells you what kind of people are good and what kind of people are bad. Who are they to tell you who's good and who's bad? You're able to determine yourself who's a good person and who's a bad person. An atheist who contributes greatly to individual charities, who is a good Samaritan throughout their lives. Are you saying that person should go to hell? Hogwash. That's really dumb to think that that's true. That speaks only of the person themselves being brainwashed. Because logic totally says that's not true. A good person, by definition, doesn't go to hell, even if it existed. Are you saying God's going to turn down a dude just because he doesn't believe a particular religion, even though he's a good guy or a good woman? BS, dudes. That's BS. But that is a power play that religions have used to coerce obedience out of the masses, that they have refused to allow them to understand the truth. And the truth is, you don't need to believe a religion to have an interface, a personal relationship with a supreme, the universal mind, God, whatever you want to call it. It's you. You don't need religion. And they know it, I think. In my 70 years, what I've seen, I think they know it. Why else do they wear robes? What's the point? Why are they so adamant that science is bad? What do they fear in science? Truth? The bottom line is that Western religion is an attempt to convince the masses and the individuals within the mass that they cannot reach God on their own. You know, the universe is full of beauty, and it's full of wonder, and it's full of miracles. And even atheists receive miracles. What are miracles? Intervening events in the physical world that at this moment in time we cannot explain by science. In the future we will, just as we now can explain many things thought to be miracles before, in the past. You don't have to be religious to be one with the Supreme Being. You already are. You already are. Being religious only means you follow some rules made by men, mostly men, down through history, to control the obedience of the masses for what the religious elite's personal and community wealth and power. That's all. If the religious elites really cared about you, they would march into Gaza together as one force and quietly and peacefully say stop. To fight any further, you're going to have to kill us first. And the war there would stop. And then they would march on to the Ukraine. They go to the Donbass together as one force. And they would tell the Ukrainians and the Russians to lay down their arms. They would tell the Russian soldiers to go back home. And Ukraine is not their home. And then they would march to Moscow. And they would say, Mr. Putin, you must surrender. You're a war criminal. You must surrender. And why don't they do it? Because what do lives mean to them? Except as talking points for power plays. Thank you. This is the Universal Mind Channel. Have a good day.